Thank you everyone for your patience. We're going to go ahead and get started. If you'd like to have a seat, thank you so much. Oh, it's not on. It feels on.
Yeah, it is on.
I believe it's on.
Yeah, you just have to keep it very close.
Thank you so much, folks at home, for bearing with us. Thank you, everyone in our audience this evening. Good evening. Welcome to our first of our 2025 Great Presenter Series. Tonight, we are excited to have Pallavi Nagesha here to lead us through an exploration of Karana Sangeetam, the dance of music. Pallavi is the founding director of Bhūmikā Arts, a nonprofit promoting movement and the performing arts. She is a multifaceted artist and educator who teaches Bharatanatyam, Sanskrit, yoga, and the Ayurvedic lifestyle. A recipient of grants from the Massachusetts Cultural Council and local cultural councils, Pallavi has also been recognized for her contributions to the BIPOC community in Wayland. She also serves on the Wayland Cultural Council, teaches at Regis College, and works at Amazon Web Services, bringing her artistic sensibilities to her professional work. Thank you so much, Pallavi, for being so patient and wonderful, and for being here tonight. A couple of housekeeping notes. First, we are recording this session for broadcast on Waycam, our local cable access channel, and for the library's YouTube page, so you will be able to watch and share with friends. For those of you joining us on Zoom, please put your questions in the chat box at any time, and I will read them aloud at the Q&A. And now, I'll get out of the way and hand it over to Pallavi. Thank you so much.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. It's a welcome to all of you, and I'm invoking my teachers to be present with me. And as we always do in classical Indian dance, I will start off with a namaskaram or a quick giving of thanks. And I will explain to you what I am doing once I have done that. So we begin our practice or any performance with this. It is a quick inclusion of everybody around us and a giving of thanks to people around us. So we touch our shoulders to indicate ourselves. We go around to indicate everybody present. We touch the earth to ask pardon for causing it pain as we dance on it. We take our arms up to invite the universe in. We touch our palms to our forehead to acknowledge the teachers who have taught us. And then we touch our palms to our heart in the Anjali Mudra, or what you all know as Namaste, to acknowledge ourselves. So this is how we begin every practice. This is called a Namaskaram. So welcome, Namaskaram, and welcome all of you and all our friends on the camera, online, to this presentation. So thank you for that wonderful introduction. And so I am a dancer, I'm a teacher, and more than anything, I'm a dreamer. So I have a lot of things that are churning in my mind, and I keep learning and growing. Can I have the next slide, please? Today, I want to talk about Karana Sangeetam, which is what I am exploring currently. Can you press next? So, quick definition of what it is. It's an ancient artistic concept. It integrates 108 movements or karanas that are described in this ancient text called the Natya Shastra. The Natya Shastra, in the Vedic Hindu diaspora, there are 4 texts that are very important to us. They're called the Vedas. Each one of them talk about different aspects of life. And the 5th Veda is considered the Natya Shastra, which kind of takes the essence of all these 4 Vedas and presents it to the common man in a very achievable way through the performing arts. And so performing arts is said to be that conduit which allows you to connect to the universe or that bigger entity that you may call God or Brahma, Vishnu, Allah. So that is what Natya Shastra is. Next, please. So what is the significance of the karanas that I'm going to talk about? So karanas have been forgotten, and they have kind of come back into people's memories just of late. So it's preserving that ancient knowledge from the Natya Shastras. Next, please. And it is, the karanas describe, are the way some people describe karana is the connection between stillness and movement. So we are exploring that space between stillness and movement. So it is exploring that area, and it deepens our connection with that. And today, when everything is just going so fast and we have hardly breath to catch on, everybody should be exploring this space. What is that space between stillness and movement, and how can we make the most use, how can we make that space the most meaningful aspect of our lives? Next, please. And of course, it gives the expressive capabilities to dance. It allows us to show, tell, and be somebody, and feel something. Next, please. And of course, the last thing is, because it's a compendium of performing arts, the Natya Shastra provides us a framework on which we build our art. And the karanas, which are also, if you think of Natya Shastra as the foundations, karanas are the little pillars that provide support to that compendium. Next, please. So I'll go over the historical context. Maybe you can just hit next so that I'll keep rolling. As I said, the origins, it's rooted in the Natya Shastra, which was written in 200 BC to 200 CE. It's a very, very old one, right? And it evolved through temple dance traditions initially. The way was that they had these dancers come in and offer themselves to God. And that was their way of connecting, spiritually connecting to something greater than themselves. And it is also depicted in our temple sculptures. And you notice that on the side of my slides, I have these sculptures represented. And especially in the South Indian temples, and there's some even in Southeast Asia, when you look at a temple panel, you will see these figurines, and you can follow the movement of these figurines. And if you carefully notice, it's the same with my slides. You can follow the movement of those figurines in my slides. And then it was basically, the way it evolved, it's the old colonizer story. The Britishers came in and they thought that what we were presenting was too sensual and vulgar. So it kind of got stamped away. And then there's this great dancer called Rukmini Devi Arundale said that I'm going to revive it, but I'm going to whitewash it a little bit and remove that aspect of sensuality most of it, she did keep some, most of that aspects of that sensuality were removed, and that became Bharatanatyam, which I started my training in. And then I moved to Karana Sangeetam, which is bringing back all of those movements back into my dance. And along with this, so what happened was after the revival, lots of dancers were trained in this ancient art called Bharatanatyam. And then a few dancers looked at those temple sculptures and said, those look very familiar. And they started to do some research. And a prominent researcher called Dr. Padma Subramaniam, who made it her life's work to bring back these karanas, these 108 movements back to us. It is her work that we all study and that I study and I will present. And as more and more people are learning Karana Sangeetam, it has started to influence our own choreographic sensibilities, and you see it kind of creep into different things at different times. And the most obvious place for all of you to look at is Bollywood movies. Next. Okay, so a little overview of the text with the 108 karanas. So they start with what are called sthanakas, or positions. It's how you stand. And this is very, the difference between codified dance, which is Bharatanatyam or Odissi or Kathak, or any of the classical dances of India and Karana Sangeetam, is that it is accessible to the common man, as it was intended in the Natya Shastra. Natya Shastra was supposed to make everything accessible to the common man. So it's got a little bit of that. So it tells you what the standing postures are. For example, the way I am standing now is a named posture, and it has meaning. The way I'm standing now is a named posture, and it has meaning. So everything was identified and named. And then we have charis, or chari literally means walk. So the way I'm walking now is identified and named. The way I'm walking now is identified and named. And there are different things. Sometimes you're constantly touching the earth, sometimes you're not. So there are charis of the ground and charis of the air. And then you have the hastas. So the mostly codified hastas have meaning. They're called nritya hastas, or gestures of drama. Vritta hastas, on the other hand, are just gestures, hand gestures. So every gesture that you may do in your life has been identified and codified. And these three things together, when you put these three things together, they make the karanas, right? And then you add, so if for anybody who's done yoga, right? You learn a movement, you add on, and then that becomes what you call a yoga pose, right? So if you think about downward dog, there are several movements incorporated in it to go into downward dog. There is the standing posture, there is the bending posture, there's the looking up posture. So these all become one meaningful entity. But downward dog is not yoga. So you add more of these entities together to form something. In the same way, we take these several karanas together to form angaharas. And then those angaharas become pindi bandhas. And then you can grow it as long as you want, and you can permutate and combine as much as you want. So that is the theoretical, just quick Karana theory for you. So what does this mean for us? Why are we all here talking about karanas? I'll give you a small visual example of what a karana is. So this is a set of movements that combine charis or walking, positions of standing, and positions can be of sitting too, and hand gestures, right? And I'll show you what the karana is first, and then I will take you through what the karana can mean if you put meaning to it. So the music is all together, and this is the very first karana in the 108 karanas. It's called Tala Pushpa Putam. It just means holding of flowers. Multiple karanas to make meaning. So that was one whole karana, which is called Talapushpaputam, along with a few other things that I used to make a story. And this is how powerful karanas are. You can take anything and do anything with them. Do you want to try some? How about some hand gestures? You want to try some hand gestures? Okay. I promise I will not make you do something very, very difficult. And yes, please, have a volunteer to come and hold the mic for me. Thank you for removing your shoes. So for us, wherever we perform is sacred space. And we call the entry to this space as Yamadvara, or the door of death. Because as a performer, I die as a person when I enter, and I take on completely another role. So that is my door of death, and to pass through that, you have to be like bereft of everything. And of course, we can't be bereft of our clothes, but we do remove our shoes. Thank you. Also happens to be my husband. So, let's see, something simple. So this is our basic hasta. Simple enough. We keep our thumbs tucked. Okay, this is called pataka. This is one of the nritya hastas, which has meaning, right? So when I hold it up like that, I can say stop. I can hold it up as a shield while I'm fighting. So this has meaning. Now, when you take something like this and you add something very subtle, I've dropped my index finger to its middle knuckle. Means nothing, but then I can show. Means nothing again. You know, it's just a movement, right? And then you can do many things. And it's just a movement. So this is one of the nritta hastas. Another nritta hasta, which is fun if you want to try. So you take two fists, get them together. You go right over left, left over right, and then you go right over left again, twisting, getting the backs of the hands together, and then twisting back, getting the fronts of the hands together. Right? Very simple, right? One more time.
Far from it.
One more time. Right over left, left over right, right over left, and the right twists over to join the backs of the wrists, and then twists back to join the front of the wrists.
So those of you who think that this does not invite RSI, yes, dancers do get RSI.
Actually, this is a great exercise for RSI. And then, okay, let's try something else. Just flail your fingers out. So when it's just shown like this, it is a Natya Shastra or a dramatic gesture that shows a bowl or an open flower. But when I just flail it out like that, it's just pretty.
You have amazing fingers.
Thank you.
Really.
And then I can use this to do many things, like I'm fanning myself. Right? So these are some of the hastas that we use. And I was talking about stanakas or standing postures, right? So
Before you go there, do the thumbs up.
with a thumbs up,
Yeah.
okay. So just holding the thumbs up. This is called shikara, which is a nritya hasta, not a nritta hasta, so we don't use it in karanas,
Okay.
but we use it in Bharatanatyam. This has meaning, because this has meaning. It is to show victory. You show victory, you show holding of anything like a spear or a bow is shown like that, right? And for my Indian friends, iconic Rama, right? He's always shown holding the bow. And that's one. So the other things are the sthanakas. I showed you the positions, right? In Bharatanatyam, which is the dance form, we start with our basic position is like a plie. We start with our heels together, feet apart, and knees bent. So this is called an aramandi or ardha mandala. But in Karana, this is a mandala. It's called a mandala because if you recognize the patterns, it is my legs are making, it is a geometric shape or a mandala. So this is called a mandala. And there are several other positions, right? Like so we can all stand and try some. I won't make you bend like I did. I promise.
You can try the bending.
You can try the bending, yeah.
Show the back.
So I will show you the Ardha Mandala again, or the Mandala in Karana Sangeetam. Basically, you have your heels together, your feet are turned out, and if you have knee problems, do not do this. And I'm not able to see my friends online, but I hope you are. So begin to bend your knees to go over your toes. Be very careful about that. So, and the back, the line of the back is tall and intact. I'm not compromising it by, overarching or going the other way. So I'm maintaining the integrity of my back. My tailbone is tucked in, as I said. So this is the mandala. And another common position in Karana Sangeetam we use is this. It's called ayatam. It's just 1 foot with no weight on it. So all my weight is on my right foot, and the left foot is just hanging for. And we use it a lot for people who stand and watch. Right? And that's a kind of a masculine thing for us to do. We want to show a man just being nonchalant, we'll do that. But the same thing, if we want to show a woman, we'll just bring that foot in and get on the balls of our feet. And a woman can be nonchalant that way too. And instead of tapping her foot, she will raise and drop her hips. So that's another position. And now we're combining two things. Combining the standing posture with a movement. So when you start to think about what happens between this and this is very interesting. And that's the space Karana Sangeetam explores. Right? What is it doing to our, not just our muscles and our physical sense, but what's it doing to our minds, right? When I go like that, what is my state of mind? Once I start doing this, something changes. So what changes and where does it change? So that space between stillness and movement. I encourage all of you to start to think about that as you go about your daily chores, right? There is stillness, there is movement. And if something changes in between those movements, the space between the stillness and movement, something changes in that space. And explore that. It is a beautiful space to be in. All right, thank you for joining me. Great work. All right, can we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So what's the connection between what I'm saying? Why did I say Karana Sangeetam is about is the movement of music? It's because the space in between, there is this hum. Can you move forward? So, the universe is in a constant hum, right? So there's stillness, there's movement, there's space, and that space has a hum. It has a rhythm. It has a melody to it. And when you're exploring that space, music becomes such an important part of that, right? If I was doing the same movement and I had dan, da dan, da dan, da dan, da dan, right? That gives a completely different meaning than if I had something soft of Mozart going on, right? So that becomes so important for us to think about and how we feel about that space. If I have just had an argument with my spouse, then that music becomes different from if I am upset with my child. It's the same kind of emotions, right? They're both of anger and upset. But then there's a slight shift in the melody. So how do we explore that space? That is what Karana Sangeetam is all about. Can we explore that space to help us make that meaning alive, right? And then along with it, you can keep going. There's the rhythmic synchronization. Like I said, that space has a beat, has a rhythm. So how do you pulsate between stillness and movement? How do you, we spoke about the melodic interpretation and the structural alignment too, right? My center of gravity is right in the middle of my body. I'm shifting it. What do I need to watch when that shift happens? I'm shifting it again. What do I need to watch when that shift happens? So thinking about all of those things, and you think about those structural alignments, those rhythmic concepts, even in music, for those of us who write music, right? When we understand that there is a structure, we are placing notes, there is a rhythm to it, there is a melody to it. And you have to start thinking about movement in the same way. There is a structure, there is a rhythm, and there is a melody. So how can you move? And you are. It's not that we all have to think about it consciously and move that way. Every living being moves like that. It's just about thinking how we get from here to there and what does that space mean to us at any given point. Okay, move forward. And of course, the other connection is not just the physical, but the facial, right? How do I express joy? How do I express anger? How do I express sorrow? So those are all the things that are coming in, and that kind of ties completely into music. If I have a very upbeat song, I can't have facial expressions that don't match with that. Or if I have a slow operatic melody, I can't have facial expressions that don't match with that. So starting to think about all this and kind of think about what happens in our daily lives. How do we think about life? Is my life a dramatic opera? Or can I bring some comic elements into it once in a while and explore that space? It's all interesting questions that philosophically dance students learn. Next. So this is something that I learned from my teacher. And you can just watch it and then I'll ask you some questions about that. So this used the upper body movement of the karanas and the lower body movement of Bharatanatyam. What I was doing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 is one of the basic steps of Bharatanatyam. So I was using that, but the upper body movements of a karana. What did you take away from this clip? She seemed excited. Do we have any chat going on? Okay.
Body movement was like fast, rhythmic, along with the music.
Right, it was rhythmic. Did anybody notice what she was doing with her hands?
She had her face on the ball. It was very hard to see.
It was hard to see. Okay, let me see if I can do it again. With the hands, without doing the feet. That's what she was doing. So, what do you think she was trying to do?
She was making her face.
Yes, she was getting dressed. She was getting dressed. So it's fascinating what you can do with these movements. I can do the same movement as a removing of something on my face, right? It's like I'm breaking through something. So it's fun. It's fun to explore these. Can I have the next slide? All right. So what are some of the modern applications? And you can just keep going. I'll talk as inspiration hits me, I guess. So there's a lot of choreographic innovation that's going on in the space of karanas, right? They are so ancient but so new to us. So we are working it into the different forms of Indian classical dance that is there around. So just recently, my dance partner, Revati, who's actually online, and I did a presentation where I used a lot of these karana movements. She's classically trained in the Bharatanatyam style, and I'm also trained in the Bharatanatyam style, but then I've kind of shifted to the karanas. So it was very interesting for me to see how my choreography of karanas work with her body, which has been trained in a different style. So those are the kinds of experiments that are going on around. And because everything is so new, we are taking concepts that are not considered traditional, right? The people who think about, like, especially because how the fluid the movements are, people are thinking about the seasons, right? How can you show seasons with this kind of movement? How can you show the different elements? Wind, water, all of those are fluid, right? So, and the movements that you can use are very ballet-like, but then that also got this amazing component of facial expression that's involved in it. So what can you do? What are the crossovers that we can look at, right? And the other crossover that we have currently going on is martial arts. So how can somebody who's doing martial arts incorporate something like this to find new movement, new ways to express themselves? And music composition. So knowing that dancers can do certain things helps composers compose music. To give you an example, some of the modern composers have composed music on these sculptures. And they've let their imaginations run wild with it. Seeing somebody, for example, there is one sculpture where one woman seems to be holding a mirror and another woman is peering over her shoulder. So this poet just decided that this woman is getting ready for getting dressed to meet her lover, and the friend is saying that you don't need all of those. Your inner beauty is enough. And he composed a whole poem around that, which is so beautiful. And then it was set to music, and my friend Revati, again, I choreographed and she's danced on this. So these are the kinds of wonderful innovations that are going on. And I talked about the cross-disciplinary collaborations that we have. And research, a lot of research. So for example, the video piece that you saw of me, taught by my teacher, is her thinking of how can we combine teaching these into the diaspora of the traditional classical arts, but like Bharatanatyam, right? So she said, okay, we are so used to doing the foot movement. What if I bring in a little bit of Karana movement into the upper body? And that just changes the dimension of the whole movement. So typically when we do that, the 1, 2, 3, 4 step that we did, it's done like this. So those are very different movements. So we're going to. So that's very different from doing. Right. So it just brings in a different dimension of musicality to the movement. And so one of the things that we have going on for us is that we are exploring. So there are social themes that we explore. I recently worked with 2 groups actually. One which is a group that helps battered women, and another time there was like a protest rally against rape. So I was able to take these kinds of movements and build something to empower, to free women. So again, all of these things, the contemporary social issues, we can explore because everything is so new to us. Yet, if you think about it, the concepts come from 200 BCE. How wonderful is that? And personal narratives. People have started to tell their own stories, where they're from, what they're going through. If you think about all the all the issues that are happening currently in the world. So people have started to talk about them, and this is another media. And it's expanding, this kind of discourse is expanding into this medium, which is fantastic to see. And of course, abstract concepts, right? I just described to you, this is something that we are trying with the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, where there's going to be a sculpture exhibition, and trying to think around how we can present at something like that. What can we do to look at that? How can we react to that abstract sculpture and create something beautiful? It's a performance. There's the visual beauty out there, and then there's a performance that reflects that beauty. And this is a fantastic way to, as a teacher, I found that it is a fantastic way to engage students in exploring their own emotional landscape. I get 4-year-olds who can, obviously, day one, they cannot do this. So what can I teach them to keep them interested? And I found that, again, thanks to Revati, my partner, who she's so fantastic with her students, that kind of talking about their everyday things in the parlance of these movements really helps. So when they come in, I ask them how their day is going. And I say, no, show it to me in dance. And it is very interesting to see what they come up with and how they're able to release the burden of the day. And I also have 40-year-olds who do the same, not just the 4-year-olds. I have 40-year-old students who come in and they're like, I'm so tired, and say, can you show it to me in dance? Can you show me how tired you are? So, and it's a great release. All right. Before I go in, do you have anything else you want me to talk about? Any questions? Yes.
These activities, do you do these alone, or do you do these in front of people as a performance, or with people? How do you?
All of the above. All of the above, right? So dance is a personal practice for me. It's my way of meditation. But I also run a school. I dance with my partner, Revati. We do performances around. And we also invite other people to dance with us. So all of that is happening simultaneously.
When you have a performance, is it creatively designed by you and then kept to that as a dance?
A body.
As opposed to ad lib? It's creative.
Like today, yeah. Yeah, so both happen. So, for example, I do an annual performance of our students, right? And that's something that's choreographed, and we present it, we record it, it's there, and I might teach the same thing to another student. Same, exactly how it was done with my teachers, right? You know, while we were learning, they did something, they tried something, the teachers taught them something, they kept it going. And we have a lot of those traditional pieces that we have learned. But today, when I go back to my teacher, and I ask her to teach me something, we mostly speak about the philosophic aspect of that piece of music, right? Because she does not choreograph pieces for me. She will interpret them, and she will help me interpret them, and kind of allow me to put in movements by myself. And it takes a long time. We keep revisiting the same piece again and again, and it changes every single time I revisit something. It changes, and there's some very powerful pieces of poetry that I go back to again and again, and each time my own reaction to them changes. I'll give you an example. So there was this 18th century poet who was obsessed with our god Krishna. And he wrote a bunch of poems. It's called Gita Govinda. And he's composed 18 poems on Krishna's love affair with this person called Radha. It is seen from the point of view of Radha and Radha's friends. And it's like a progression, right? Krishna leaves, he's unfaithful. And from Radha being like looking for him being bereft, to Radha being angry, to when she reaches the end, she's like given up. And she's giving him away to all his other lovers. So it's a philosophical thing, right? Like it's our relationship with God. We are upset that he's not helping us. We are angry, and then finally we give him away. And that's when we get him. We get our God when we give him away. That's the philosophical journey of these poems. And each piece, beautifully written, beautifully put to music. I feel differently about each of them when I approach them. Right? What am I doing? How have I evolved as a woman, as a spiritual person? How am I reacting to that piece today? It keeps changing. So there's a little bit of that choreographed aspect to everything we do, but then so much of it is something that we need to kind of work on, keep working on. You know, it's like that river stone. The more you polish it, the smoother it gets.
In some ways, it sounds a little like jazz. And then you got a basic idea.
Exactly.
Improvise on.
Yeah. Which is very strangely this piece that I am going to present to all of you today. It's something that we have spoken about multiple times, my teacher and I. And I've presented it maybe a couple of times. It's mostly my own practice. I do this a lot in my own practice. And I see this evolving, the story in my own head evolving and changing each time I do it. So my husband actually has a recording of it, me doing it, I don't know, a couple years ago. And I'm sure if we compare it, it'll be completely different. Not because I forgot what I did, which I probably did, but it's because my thinking has evolved. My relationship with that piece of music has evolved.
Having said that, when you first come to learn not like to learn what's happening. So the foot movements that she presented in both on the video as well as later, they're all things, they're very basic elements to them. They are highly structured. There may be some innovation or movement on that, but the basic things will be. So when the student comes in, I feel that they're learning things like a music student in the US will learn
The notes, yeah. I mean, you have to start with the notes, right? And you learn your twinkle, twinkle, and then you move on. So that's basically how everything, all art is, right? You learn the foundations and then you start to build new things on it. Anything else? Anybody else wants to ask me anything else? Okay. This piece, again, this is again a Radha Krishna piece. The Krishna is our most colorful god. So this is very simple song. It's about a girl asking Krishna to go to the garden with her. And she's trying to entice him into telling him a lot of things, like there is a river, there's a beautiful river, let's go. That bird singing, let's go. So there's a lot of that in it. And as I've presented as a young girl, children playing in the garden. And I've presented as a somebody who's completely sure and is, so there are three kinds of women, right? Like there is the 10, 12-year-old who just wants to play. Then there's the 16, 17-year-old whose hormones are raging. And then there is the 30-year-old who's like, oh, whatever. So I've played it in all ways, and let's see what comes out today. One of the poignant lines of this song is where she says that, how can you ask me to let go? Because you are me. So that's one thing that I play with a lot, of how to interpret that and how to portray that. So this is called Chaliye Kunjanamo. It's written by, it's actually modern 18th century king, Maharaja Swati Tirunal. Ready?
श्याम गरी चलिए कुंजन तुम हम मिले श्याम गरी चलिए कुंजन तुम हम मिले श्याम गरी श्याम गरे चलिए कुंजनमो तुम हम मिले श्याम गरे चलिए कुंजनमो तुम हम मिले श्याम गरे देखो जमुना रे बही सुंदर अति नीरवरी देखो जमुना रे बही सुंदर अति नीरवरी देखो जमुना रे बही सुंदर अति निर्भरी 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 चलिए कुंजनमो तुम हम मिले श्याम गरे चलिए कुंजनमो छोड़िए कैसे मोह में तो तेरो हाथ धरी छोड़िए कैसे मोह में तो तेरो हाथ धरी छोड़िए कैसे मोह में तो श्याम हरे सरिये कुंजनमु सुनिए कोयल सुनिए कोयल सुनिए कोयल के बोल पिया क्या कह रही 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 चलिए कुंजनमु तुम हम मिल श्याम हरे चलिए कुंजनमु चलिए कुंजनमु चलिए कुंजनमु श्याम हरे
Any questions about the performance? Was I flirting? Yes. I want him to come with me, right?
So it was yes and no, and yes and no.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Can you explain towards the end we heard the flute? Can you explain
Yeah.
the words and the
The last verse? Okay. So basically, the last verse is saying that, like I said, the birds, the cuckoos. So she's saying, look at what the cuckoos are saying. So cuckoos are lovebirds, right? So they're always together, they're always in a pair. And she's alluding to that. And she's saying, listen to what the cuckoos are saying. They're together. We have to be together. Right? And then in my own head, the story is like, he says, nope, I don't want to come and play with you. And she gets upset, right? And throws a little temper tantrum. And then he finally says, oh, she's throwing a tantrum, I have to please her. And so it's a lot of normal gestures, right? Yeah.
This is just as much in your face as in your hands and as in your feet. The face is just as expressive.
Yeah, yeah, that is the Indian classical diaspora is like that. There's a lot of facial expression, what we call abhinaya. Abhinaya can be in the face, it can be anywhere in your body, right? One of the things that we are taught is that you can call or you can call. There are multiple ways of calling somebody, right? Even you know. So you can call or you can call, right? And then the same goes for like multiple situations, you know. My children often tease me that I put on my dance face when I'm angry with them, right? You know, come here. So I don't say come here. You come here now. So it's the whole body has to be acting for this to be effective. And you know, this movement that I do, right? I don't know whether as Westerners you've seen it a lot, but in India you see that a lot, where people, you know, they go with their toes and they draw on the ground, right? It's either a coy person or somebody waiting. So that's something that we do, and that's an everyday movement. And that's what karanas are about, like how do we incorporate everyday movement? We will stomp our foot, right? And that's not a typical dance gesture, right? It'll be in a play, be in a dramatic play, but it won't be in a dance. And then the other thing that I did was, imagined he reached out and put his hand on my shoulder and I brushed it off. That's also an everyday gesture. You don't do that. And then, same thing with this. I was holding him and he just did that. So my hands went like that. And I tried again and then he brushed me off again. Not just brushed me off, he just violently threw my hands away, right? And that I tried to portray. And again, everyday gesture. So that is what karanas are bringing, right? Like they say, how can we make everyday gestures dramatic and graceful? And that's the kind of learning we're going back into. How does the body naturally move? Can we capitalize on that movement and present it to people so they enjoy it?
You use the word codified or Bharatanatyam moves are codified. So how much is actually codified versus up to interpretation by the teacher or the student? So as between teacher to teacher or student to student, would you see the same kind of karanas or movements or a lot of interpretation?
Yeah, karanas are something that's completely different from so karanas don't exist as a unit in any of the classical dances. They have little nuances. So the Natya Shastra, which is the compendium, right? It has all these suggestions. Everything in the Natya Shastra is a suggestion. You can do this, you can do that. So what the different Indian classical dancers have done is that they have kind of honed, it's a huge, huge compendium. They've honed in on something that they think is important to them, and they have really gone deep into studying that and creating a structure around that. So Bharatanatyam has taken these geometric shapes and footwork, and they have really deeply gone into that and codified that to the point where people are afraid to, it's the same with every other art form, right? People are afraid to explore color beyond the lines. And what karanas give us is that permission to color beyond the lines. There is innovation even within the specific classical art forms, but then karanas give those innovation wings.
So in terms of codification, sort of the way the leg, the foot and the knees are presented is different in, say, Kathak versus Bharatanatyam versus the three most common ones. If we can show us.
So, like I said, the basic posture of Bharatanatyam is like a plie, right? Odissi is very similar, but they do what is called a chauka, which is a little farther. So, along with the arms, it makes sense. It looks like a square, right? Because they hold their arms like that. Bharatanatyam, on the other hand, we hold our arms out. So it's very, the lines are much more clean. And Kathak, they always stand, they're in what's called a sthanaka, which is the heels are together and toes are out, but they're straight. And this is their basic posture. So they kind of built upon this idea of heels together, toes out. You know, one of us does it this way, one of us does it this way, one of us does it this way. And there are other different kind of parallels and similarities. Kuchipudi also has a mandala like this, um, just different things, right? Like what they focus on. Bharatanatyam, and I have learned Bharatanatyam, so I know more about Bharatanatyam than anything else. We focus a lot on the geometry of the form and the facial expressions. Anything else? All right, well, then I think we can call it a day. Thank you. Thank you all for being with me on this very, very cold night. I appreciate. And I look forward to talking to all of you again. Thank you.